All right.
Well, right off at the top, I want to shout out the resources that we used. We listened to one of my favorite resources for this, and when also I did the same when we did the 2008 during our podcast. I listened to this great podcast called The Cup from 97.1 The Fan. It was created by JD Smith, who is one of the local radio hosts down there in Columbus, and we also used Steve Sirk's A Massive Season, which is a fantastic book written by Steve Sirk, all about the 2008 season. So a lot of the stuff that Connor was talking about was actually in there. I love Steve Sirk's books. I love all of his resources, and used a lot of it during our research and our podcast. So and we also rewatched the game on Apple TV because they let you rewatch all the MLS Cup highlights and the whole game actually, and I really enjoy watching that game to make me feel good inside sometimes. So we rewatched some of that.
When the Crew blows it, we go and watch that game.
Yeah, that and the Eastern Conference Final from last year against Cincinnati. If I'm having a really bad day, I go watch that Eastern Conference Final. It just fills me right back up with joy. Okay, so the 2008 Cup Final was held at a neutral location at the Home Depot Center in Los Angeles, California, which is actually then it was the home of the LA Galaxy and Chivas USA. But despite being held over 2,000 miles away from Columbus, and it still felt like a home game for many of the Crew players. Because Frankie Hayduck, Duncan Outen, and Robbie Rogers all were from Southern California in one way or another. You know, some of them had family there, some had grown up there, some had gone to colleges there. And so, you know, they had a lot of friends and family that were at the game and ready to cheer on. And the Crew also had a large contingent of what was then in 2008, the Nordeck formed because where all the supporters groups were sitting in the historic Crew Stadium, they actually cut off a section of that and forced them all to sit in this one corner. And now they call themselves the Nordeck. So 2008, the Nordeck decided they were going to all head out west to Los Angeles, and they formed what they called Nordeck West. And you can actually see, if you watch the replay, a mass of yellow shirts in the northwest corner, which is in the exact same spot that they would be located at in Crew Stadium. So they had a lot of support from both friends and family, and a lot of yellow shirts in the stadium cheering them on for the game.
Before the game started, interviews indicated that the Crew had a lot of confidence going into the game. You know, they were feeling themselves, and that's important. When you feel good, you play good. You feel good, you play good, you win. But then when the game actually started and the whistle blew, the Red Bulls were mostly in control of the game. Siggy Schmid said in an interview afterwards that the plan was to try and draw the New York Red Bulls out of their usual defensive style so that the Crew could create attacking opportunities. The first 20 minutes was mostly controlled by Red Bulls, but thanks to that great little monkey's paw curl, a lot of their opportunities just went wide of the net.
One of the key players for New York was Dane Richards. He's a lightning quick defender who was key to connecting passes from the back line to the front attacking. And the Crew knew that they needed to shut him down, and the task fell squarely on the shoulders of Alejandro Moreno, who was on the same side. In an interview with 97.1 The Fans, JD Smith on his podcast, The Cup, Moreno describes how the Crew decided to force Richards inside so that he would be forced to dribble through traffic instead of down the sideline in order to get the ball up front like he usually would. This proved to be effective and limited Richards throughout the game and forced him to use his non-dominant left foot to make passes instead. And the first 30 minutes were filled with a lot of tension, right? 3 shots from both sides, all of them led to misses, and 1 yellow card was shown to Chris Leitch after a very late tackle on Robbie Rogers. But beyond that, it was back and forth from both teams. Every team had their chance. But then in the 31st minute, the Crew broke the seal.
That's right. The Crew went Morbius mode. From just around half field, Guillermo Barros Scalotto, good old GBS, muscles the ball away from Vanderberg and sends it down the line to Alejandro Moreno, who jukes a defender and slips past the goalkeeper on the far side into the net. The Crew had taken the lead just before halftime and went into the locker room feeling very confident. But that confidence wasn't that long-lived once the second half started. A couple of first half knocks led to the Crew coming out of the locker room a bit sluggish.
In the 51st minute, Red Bulls struck back quickly with a wonderful pass through the defense from Dane Richards and John Wolinek, who slides it under the Crew goalkeeper, Will Hesmer, to score in the 51st minute and make it 1-1. But the Crew were quick to respond. And after a failed attacking run that led to a corner on the northwest corner of the stadium, you can see on the broadcast that all of the Nordic fans are there chanting and bowing down to great Guillermo as he sends a beautiful corner in, which found itself directly placed on top of the forehead of Chad Marshall, who blasts it back into the back of the net. And the Crew now led 2-1, just 2 minutes after conceding the goal to Red Bulls. Now, after being ahead 2-1 and the game's, getting closer to the end, they decide to shift into a more defensive position. The Red Bulls are now forced to attack a lot more and play a lot more aggressively. They played a lot of long balls through and a lot of through balls to create passes. And thankfully, it didn't end up in anything crazy in the second half. But the Crew managed to retain their defensive formation and see out the rest of the game.
The Red Bulls had to create some chances, and they did. With Will Hesmer had to make 8 saves during the course of the game and forced a hard tackle from Gino Padula to stop a run from Dane Richards. But the Crew was not done yet. In the 82nd minute, they performed one of the best goals in the Crew's 2008. Guillermo once again receives the ball off a poor clearing pass by the Red Bulls and sees Frankie Hayduck running behind the defenders. Guillermo lobs the ball up and Frankie heads it over Danny Sapero and into the net. When interviewed on the Cup, Frankie said he initially thought he was offside, but the flag stayed down and the goal went down in history. 3-1 was the final score, and the Crew had won their first Cup, vindicating all of those years in the 90s where they lost to DC United.
2008 season is what I consider to be one of the most influential Crew seasons ever, and it set the team on a trajectory to solidify themselves as one of the best in the MLS.
Try to move that, Daddy Don.
Yeah, try to get rid of that. Speaking of Dong Arbor, there's a great gaffe during the trophy ceremony where he's like, "I want to present the trophy to the captain of the Columbus Crew, Guillermo Barro Escaloto," who Guillermo wasn't the captain of the team. It was actually Frankie Hayduck. And I don't remember the guy's name, but whoever was like the MC of it, he was like, actually, it's Frankie Hayduck. And so then Frankie receives the trophy and then they all celebrate. But I just thought that was so funny that it really is very Don Garber that he couldn't be bothered to do a little bit of research about the Crew for like 5 minutes.
He could have just looked at who was wearing the armband.
I guess he didn't really need to. Maybe
he had his eyes closed during the whole game.
That's what it was. Yeah, he was just off doing Don Garber things, man. We can't really describe what he's doing these days. We're never going to know what Don's doing.